Welcome back to the CNBC-TV18 Budget Verdict 2025. And for our next powerful discussion and the next panel, please welcome on stage, and we have some of them on stage already, Mr. M. Nagaraju, Secretary, Department of Financial Services. Ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause, please. Mr. Ajay, Seth, Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs. Mr. Ravi Agarwal, Chairperson, Central Board of Direct Taxes, and Sanjay Kumar Agarwal, Chairperson, Central Board of Indirect Taxes. Over to you, Shereen, for this panel.
Gentlemen, a big round of applause for the secretaries from North Block who join us here. And they've been very kind. It's been a very busy month for them, not just a busy week, a very busy month for them. So we appreciate you taking time out here to join us and answer questions that are coming in live on our YouTube page, on our social media handles, and of course here from our live audience. Economic Affairs Secretary, if I may start by asking you, sir, as we've been talking about it, this budget has really tried to address the 3 C's: consumption, Capex, and consolidation, and it's done well on each of those fronts. It seems to have prioritized consumption at this point in time with the personal income tax cuts. If I could ask you about the concern perhaps that there has emanated on Capex, and the question coming in, the Capex to GDP has come down from 3.4% of GDP in the BE of FY25 to 3.1% of GDP in BE of FY26. Is this an admission of the execution limits of the government or the limits to the absorptive capacity of the economy? And I'll link this back to the point that was made by the former Finance Secretary here on the budget verdict last year, when he also said that there has to be a limit to how much you can expect the government to do as far as Capex is concerned, and perhaps at this 10-11 lakh crore rupees is the peak that the government can do on Capex. So if you can explain the rationale, the thinking, and the roadmap from here on.
Thanks for this question. I'll draw your attention to July budget, wherein Finance Minister said that we have brought the Capex, public expenditure on Capex, to a very high level, and moving forward, our endeavor would be to maintain it relative to GDP at that high level, and expect a similar amount to come from the state governments, and thereafter private sector to chip in. Where we are in that one, till about 5 years back, we were 1.5% of the GDP. That used to be the Capex from union budget. Today it is 3% plus. But if we add what the grants Government of India provides to states for providing for their capital expenditure, prime example, if you can say Jal Jeevan Mission, there's a huge amount of provision getting made there. The total provision is 15.5 lakh crore, which is 4.3% of the GDP. And please look at the number. Total fiscal deficit is 4.4%. Yeah. That means almost the entire borrowing of Government of India is going for capital expenditure. Since mid-70s, we never had a revenue surplus. So these are the limits of capital expenditure, what the government can do, union government can do. But even with reference to the revised estimates of this year, the increase, the total provision next year, 15.5%, is about 18% higher on an economy which will be growing at about 10% plus. So these are the limits, and by sure, it is not a reflection of implementation capacity, but the newer sectors have to be brought in. Newer sectors meaning urban infrastructure is a big sector, and this budget provides for additional 10,000 crore for them. Plus social sectors have to be brought in. Plus public-private partnership, where the push has to be given through the renewed effort on that part. Thank you.
On each of those issues, sir, and if I could, address something that you just spoke about, the Jal Jeevan Mission, for instance. The question is, grants for Capex to states include schemes, as you pointed out. It includes the NREGS, it includes the Jal Jeevan Mission, the PMAY, etc. A lot of it, which analysts believe is not technically Capex. Why would you then include this to look at like the Capex budget, is the question, sir.
See, there can be issues around whether an asset, rural asset getting created out of employment generation scheme, whether that is a typical infrastructure or not, there can be a different opinion. But rural water supply will run into as large as 5 crore, 10 crore, 20 crore, even a 50 crore scheme. These are very much capital assets. So the only thing is, these are not the capital assets which will be on the balance sheet of Government of India.
Okay.
So even if we leave around that part, just come to that what the numbers are. Government of India is spending 3% plus of GDP, plus CPSUs is spending almost another 4.5 lakh crore, which will about 1.5% of GDP, is a substantial amount. The government system, union and central PSUs is spending close to about 19.5 lakh crores, which is 6% plus of GDP. So this is a significant number.
So there is no deviation on part of the government strategy to address growth via Capex. That policy objective, that policy intent is steadfast.
That is correct. And there where the balancing were to come in, that on one side consolidation is happening, as you said, a fine balance between consolidation, consumption and Capex. That is a fine balance this budget tries to do.
On consumption, sir, and I think, there is unequivocal and unambiguous appreciation for what the government has tried to do to try and stimulate consumption and stimulate demand. But the question is, when do you expect this to kick off? When do you believe we will start to see the real impact of the measures taken by the budget to kick off and provide that consumption boost?
Other measures in the budget, whether it is on a Capex or on reforms or several schemes, will always have a lag. But as far as consumption, the big tax relief, which is 0.3% of the GDP, 1 lakh crore, individuals get to know that from 1st April onwards, that is an extra money in their pocket. They may use it for saving, they can use it buy durables, they can buy it for another EMI, for a larger house, etc. So the impact starts immediately, the very start of the financial year, because that money is extra money is available for them to use it in a manner, or even taking the family out for a tourist site, and hopefully within India.
Hopefully within India, and those 50 tourist destinations that you're hoping to put in places to attract more tourism. But I come back and I asked you this question on budget day, sir, and I come back again to the estimates that you believe you're working with. Krishna, the former CA, said that he expects more than 2% addition to the GDP on account of the measures undertaken on the consumption side. Would you hazard a guess on that? I mean, is that something that is that a number that you're working with?
I have not attempted doing a modeling. This will be based on certain assumptions would be there.
Yes.
But I see that in terms of giving a boost to the economy, this is the fastest means available. And it helps the middle class having an extra income. They take their own decision in whichever manner. Even if somebody were to do the savings, it will remain with the bank or in the financial market, which will go on to the productive activities later on. So I see it as a very, very positive for the economy. Where the numbers are coming, normally we see it over a period of time. Any capital investment has a multiplier effect of 3, 4 or even 5, it can come in. What impact it will have, we will see that certainly in high level of consumption. To that extent, the plant and machinery of the private sector get utilized much faster. Or if it goes for the tourism, then hotel occupancy goes up. And to that extent, those owners of those plant and machinery get enthused to invest in the next round of capital investment into the economy.
That certainly is the hope. Mr. Nagaraju, let me come to you, sir, and address the issue as far as MSMEs go, because that was something that the government and the finance minister spoke about in the speech. There was a question here specifically from one of our audience members on why the interest subvention for MSMEs, which was for a period of 5 years, has now been done away with. They believe that it ought to continue. Your take on that, as well as some of the other measures that were announced by the budget, the enhancement of the credit guarantee for SMEs, etc. Do you believe that this will provide the much needed support, the much needed stimulus and shouldering for the MSMEs, sir?
Yeah, see, the MSME sector is one of the highest priorities for the government of India due to several reasons. One is, of course, employment generation, and the other is contribution to the GDP and also to the exports markets. Now, this is where the highest potential exists in the country for creating additional employment. Now, if you look at the budget proposals that are proposed, there are several schemes to promote, incentivize, as well as give comfort for lending more to MSME sector. Now, the other scheme, apart from the MSME, there are several schemes for the MSME sector in this budget. The other thing we have revamped is Stand Up India. Earlier it used to be Stand Up India to promote first generation entrepreneurs among the women, SC, ST. That limit has now been extended, and we'll be looking at a large number of entrepreneurs, first generation entrepreneurs, which will be again micro or small enterprises in the MSME sector only. So the government intention is very clear that whatever is the central credit guarantee schemes are there, we are going to lend to the MSME sector. And then the second one, which of course is the partial credit enhancement facility that we have proposed, and the NAPFID, of course that is for the corporate sector. If they are going to issue the bonds, the credit rating will ensure that their credit rating is enhanced.
Okay, so the credit rating will be enhanced. Those are the measures for the MSMEs. But on the insurance FDI, sir, is there an expectation or an estimate of what that could mean potentially in terms of FDI inflow into the country? Are you aware of how many may be interested at this point in time? There are all kinds of numbers doing the rounds.
While I can't hazard the guess, let me give you the number. From 2000 to 2024, the total FDI flow into insurance sector is 82,000 crores. Now, 24 years, only 82,000. Whereas, the country of our size, dimension, and challenges and potential, I think we should have actually attracted huge amounts of insurance FDI. Now, there are issues related to that. Those issues are being now addressed in the budget proposals of the finance minister. One is, of course, FDI enhancement. Technically, a owner can own more than 51%, and then he's a owner. It could be 51 or 70, 60, anything. Ownership-wise, there is no issue at all. But we want to give comfort that a foreign investor, if he bring in the FDI, he can hold up to 100%. That is a comfort we are giving. The second issue, which is interconnected, is the rules. Rules have some restrictive provisions which we follow. That rules we are going to review and simplify, ensure that the investor, the FDI owners have full flexibility in appointing the senior management personnel and also for repatriation of dividends if required. We have already mentioned in the budget speech and the condition that entire premium has to be invested within the country.
Yes.
That remains. So we expect, there is a lot of enthusiasm during our consultations with the stakeholders. We see huge potential for FDI inflows.
How many companies, sir?
Many companies met, many companies have said, and we have to see ultimately when the bill is approved, notified, then ultimately the taste lies in the pudding, okay? But we have to see ultimately how many will come, how much it will come.
The pudding is being cooked, so to speak, at this point in time. But Mr. Seth, since we're talking about FDI, if I could ask you about the FDI harmonization, sir, and where we actually stand on that front, and what realistically we should expect now in terms of timelines.
Last budget, February budget, the interim budget, Finance Minister announced that we will be signing more FDI, more BITs, and with the two countries, United UAE and Uzbekistan, those were signed. And the current model BIT template of 2014 had a legacy issue. We were suddenly seeing a spurt of litigations which we never thought BITs will be interpreted in a manner to get us over there. That's why a model BIT was brought in, and earlier BITs and BIPA were terminated. But the last 10 years we are seeing that a consistency of the policy, unidirectional, improving upon the policy, that gives us a lot of confidence that we can provide a better set of protection for foreign investors. So the attempt is, and our conversation with those two countries as well as other jurisdictions is what the investors are really looking for. So between the state interest and the investor interest, that's the one area to move forward. I will not like to judge into or say that what areas can be, but if you can cite just one example. Model BIT says an entity-based protection, meaning one has to have an entity in India, registered in India to do so. Whereas investors are expecting an asset base. Those who are coming through an FPI route should also be eligible for investor protection. That's one area we are actively looking for to get into, and there are several others.
Several others. Gokul, you wanted to make a point?
Thank you, sir. It's good. My name is Gokul from Deloitte. Glad to hear that the BITs are back on the negotiation table because investors have been asking for it. There was some amount of debate on whether tax as a subject will be included in the BITs or not. Is there been any sort of thinking on that topic?
the finance minister has said we will make it more investor friendly and we will have a deep review. At this point of time, to get to say that what is on the drawing board would be rather premature. So allow the government to complete that exercise, but idea is complete it over next couple of months, maybe in about 2 quarters, and then come out with a model or model BIT which is suited for 2025 requirement. At the same time, there is a realization that the world has changed. There are so much of global uncertainty. We have to shift our game itself to attract more FDI.
Yes, we do have to bring in more FDI into the country, and I think that was articulated by the finance minister as well. But CBDT chief, if I could come to you on the direct tax code, which the finance minister has promised will be presented in Parliament in a week's time, sir. And I think, the FS gave us an indication that it's going to be half the number of words, half the number of chapters, and hopefully half the pain that that industry has dealt with as well. So if you can take us through, in the last 6 months to be able to put this together, what it's actually taken the department to do, what has been the focus area, what you've prioritized, and what we should expect.
Well, yes, we did this comprehensive exercise of comprehensive review of the Tax Act as per the announcement which was made by the Honorable Finance Minister in July 24. And yes, it was a very involved exercise where we actually involved more than 150 officers of the department who worked on different themes and different chapters. The basic idea was to make the language simpler, to cut redundancies which had crept in over a period of time. It is about, this act is 1961 Act. We are in 2025, so more about 64 years. So some provisions had become obsolete also. So we identified those provisions, identified the gaps that had also crept in, redundancies and duplications were taken out. And as a result of this entire exercise in this 6 months, the act has been now, the proposed act would be about half. I would not say exactly half, but it will be about half. It will be about half because we have to take care of different situations, you see. The shift in approach is that, we have taken some provisions which were elaborated in the base act to the rules also. And also we took inspiration from the similar exercise which was done in other sovereigns. For example, UK, Australia, simplification exercise was done in those sovereigns also. They took substantial time, but we got some lessons from that exercise that was done. And going ahead, the approach is that how can we provide more clarity to the taxpayer, because that is very important to minimize litigation and to minimize that scope for multiple interpretations. Of course, when the language gets changed, the possibility of fresh set of interpretations also happens.
Yes.
But what we are actually looking at is coming up with the guidance notes also and comprehensive answers to possible questions that may emerge and for the taxpayers' benefit, so that clarity is there, that when this existing language and the new language, how much of it is in sync and is in harmony.
How much is in sync and in harmony, and I would imagine that, the iffy portions are being done away with at this point in time, as the FS told us. But we have a question here for the CBIC chairman as well. Anita, go ahead.
Thank you. So my name is Anita, I'm from PwC, and I have a question regarding tax certainty itself. Thank you so much for a lot of budget announcements which were really helping in this line, but I do have 3 suggestions, sir. The first is regarding customs. So, sir, can we have something like an advanced customs valuation agreement similar to the transfer pricing where we have the APAs, so that, the valuation of the goods which are imported in India, there is a certainty with the importers with regard to that, especially from the related party transaction perspective. So that's point number 1. And we do know that it happens in certain other countries, especially in South Korea. It has already happened, and it is working very well. So the second one is regarding GST. Now, I do know that GST is central and state, but my question, sir, is that we used to have a sectoral committee, around 18 of them, which were actually focused on the various nuances of the GST implications on the various types of transactions in that particular sector. And there were FAQs, questions, there were discussions with the industry, and thereafter they came up with that particular FAQ, etc. So can we revive that? Because I do believe that there are a lot of areas where those type of clarity is required because GST is not same for everybody across the sector. And so the third one is that from a tax certainty perspective, again in customs, we have the Advanced Ruling Authority. We do have 2 benches, one in Delhi and Mumbai. But I do believe that India is such a large country, and I think we should be having at least a couple of more, whether in south or east, if those can be added, sir.
I don't even need AI to take my job. Anita's taken my job away from me. Thank you very, very much, Anita, for a very comprehensive set of questions. Mr. Agarwal, go ahead, sir.
You have mentioned about advanced ruling, and advanced ruling is operating from 2 centers, from Delhi and Mumbai. The number of applications which are received by the advanced rulings, we are finding that those are disposed of within very reasonable time. So there is no build-up of pendencies. But as you have mentioned that it can be created at other places, but now we are in the era where things are done online. Applications, because physical presence is not required. So documents are submitted online, documents, and in case any kind of hearing is required, that it can also be provided online. In fact, we are emphasizing of conducting all sorts of hearing by adjudicating authorities online. We recently issued a circular in that regard also. So then I don't see any reason that we should create the authorities at different cities. So that is first thing. Second thing is that advanced ruling generally don't go into this related party transactions, because that is meant only mostly related to classification related matters. As far as related party transactions are concerned, we do admit that there is sometimes delay in finalizing the such kind of investigations which are carried out by the department. But now, as you notice, that in this budget we have brought a provision on of setting a time limit for finalization of provisional assessment. In fact, that will be a big relief and will provide certainty within a reasonable time of 2 years. The cases will be finalized, many will be in much shorter time, but the things which were dragging for years, that will not be the situation in times to come. That is one thing. The second thing which I would like to mention about, you mentioned about GST. In GST, the GOM, which has been set up to look into the rate related issues, they are going into the rates on different chapters, different sectors. So they are going into all the details, whether litigation is arising, they are going into the slab rates, they are going into socio-economic issues, how the rates should be set. This exercise initially was conducted when the GST was introduced.
Yeah.
That time the exercise was mostly on the neutrality principle, that whatever is being imposed on a particular item will continue to be imposed at almost at similar rate. But now this exercise is more comprehensive. So that's why I can say that GOM is taking some time to finalize their report and present it to the GST Council. Thereafter, yes, it will be deliberated, a consensus will be built,
right,
and the rates will be notified.
So Mr. Agrawal, if I may ask you, as you said that, the rates when they were set earlier were set on the basis of a revenue neutral rate. So what will drive the rate rationalization exercise this time around? It has been, of course, pending. There have been, there was a first GOM and now there is an expanded GOM that's looking at this issue. But what is driving the rate rationalization exercise, and what do you believe will be a comprehensive rate structure that India should aspire for as far as the GST is concerned?
I would like to say that in this rate rationalization exercise, all the issues which are maybe related to number of tax slabs, maybe how the items are placed in these different tax slabs. So all these will be looked into, and now we have the experience of more than 7 years. The type of litigation which has arisen by such placement of items in different tax rates. So with that experience, we know that where the litigation is arising, whether it is arising on food items, whether it is arising on maybe automobile components, maybe in certain other sectors. So with that experience, I think we are now in much better position to decide the rates.
So do you believe that 28% slab, which was originally the slab as far as sin goods was concerned, but then saw a lot of additions coming in, sir, do you believe that there is a case now for significantly pruning and rationalizing the items that fall under the 28% slab?
So there I would also like to mention, I could not complete that what are the things before the GOM. One of the issues is how to raise the revenue also. So the items which are placed in the bracket of 28%, if that is brought down, as some time back FS was also explaining that if something is brought down, something else will have to be raised. It cannot be one-way traffic, that everything is brought down. Then we'll be losing on revenue. Revenue is very important for states as well as center. And
so you're saying 28% might in fact be expanded to include more items?
No, I'm not saying that. But because how the rates have to be raised, that is before the GOM. GOM will have to take a view.
But surely the fitment committee, which gets a lot of the proposals from your department as well, has a view on this, sir. So, what are we talking about? Are we talking about merging of 12 and 18, or are we talking about expanding 28? What are we talking about?
I would say that fitment committee does not play a role in this entire exercise, although the TRU, they provide the secretarial support to the GOM. But the decisions are taken by GOM, not by the fitment committee.
No, I understand, sir. So, but do you believe that there is a case to be made for pruning 28, or is there a case to be made for expanding 28 at this point in time?
Because once we do this exercise and reject, move some items from one rate to the other rate, we'll have to do lot of maths also to see that the revenue which is getting collected does not come down. If it does not go up, but it should not come down.
Come down, yeah, fair enough.
So the thing is that whatever is on 28%, we cannot say that many will be moved to lower slabs, but definitely, yes, to reduce the litigation, items will have to be moved. Certain items which are of similar nature will have to be moved in one basket.
Okay, will have to be moved in one basket. If I could ask both the CBIC and the CBDT chiefs two quick questions that have come in online to us. On litigations, in fact, just this morning, or I think yesterday, the headlines on Volkswagen moving courts against a $1.4 billion tax notice. Between both direct taxes as well as indirect taxes, what are we talking about in terms of disputes at this point in time, and the process of trying to resolve disputes? How much is stuck at this point? So if I can start by asking you, and then I'll come to Mr. Agarwal.
Yes, so insofar as the disputes, the appeals that are pending on the direct tax side is concerned, so last post July 24 budget, we have increased the thresholds of filing the appeals. That is for ITAT tribunal it is 60 lakh, for High Court it is 2 lakhs, and for the Supreme Court is 5 lakh. So the thresholds have been increased so that the appeals are brought down. There's a lot of pendency insofar as commissioner appeals at the first appellate stage is concerned. And therefore, in the last 6 months, we have actually ramped up the manpower. So the commissioners, in fact, the principal commissioners of income tax have also been given the responsibility of deciding the appeals. And that way the disposal of the appeals is going up. We hope that when we end this year, we would end up with more disposal of appeals. The third initiative that was taken was the Vivad se Vishwas scheme, which has just ended on 31st of January. And about 40,000 appeals, the applications have come on Vivad se Vishwas. So if we see the total pendency of about 5 lakh and odd, so about 8% of the appeals which were pending, the taxpayers have opted for Vivad se Vishwas scheme for resolution. Apart from that, from the alternative dispute resolution perspective also, we are also setting up dispute resolution committees. So which would be actually taking up small appeals to take care of and to ensure that the small taxpayer whose demand is pending is actually taken care of. We have instructed commissioner appeals to also dispose of appeals which are pending for more than 2 years, and
Okay.
which are high demand appeals. So that is also an exercise.
And how many would those be at this point in time?
Well, those are about 1 lakh or so. And so we have, as I mentioned, we have ramped up the manpower also. And we hope
A lakh
that,
in the quantum or a lakh in terms of appeals?
in the numbers.
In the
in terms
numbers,
of numbers,
okay.
yes.
That's a
Yes,
fairly
yes.
significant
Yes,
number.
that is a significant number, but we have done a ABC analysis, and what we find is that substantial demand is pending, is corresponding to about 15,000, 20,000 appeals.
Okay.
So that is being given a push first, so that
Okay.
we are able to take care of it.
Sir, you, and before I get the questions in. On the customs and indirect taxes side, sir.
Yeah, so on litigation front, as my colleague has mentioned about the direct taxes, under national litigation policy, the limits have been enhanced on customs side also, so that we can bring down the litigation, at least from the government side. But from the trade side, they are free to litigate the matter as much as they want. The second thing which has been done in this budget, a time limit has been set for finalization of provisional assessment. That will be providing lot of certainty to the trade and will reduce the litigation. If you see, you mentioned about the Skoda case, Volkswagen case. I will not be going into the merit of the case because the matter is sub judice before the High Court. But I can say one thing, that earlier there was no time limit of finalization of provisional assessment. In that case, the provisional assessment remained pending for very long time. Therefore, the demand is for a very longish period. So those kind of situations will not arise in future. So that again is a very significant step. The third thing I would like to mention is that to reduce the litigation or the procedural thing, in this budget a provision has been brought to declare on voluntary basis if certain material facts have come to the notice of importer post the clearance from the customs charge. So there, if it comes to their notice, then they can file a declaration, and in case some duty has been short paid, they can make the payment of duty along with interest without penalty. But this will not apply in case audit or investigation has already been initiated. Similarly, in case they have they have paid the duty in excess and they have to claim the refund, presently they have to go and file an appeal against their own self-assessed bill of entry. The appeal will take some time to decide. Then once they get a favorable appellate order, they will have to come back again to the department, seek an amendment in their bill of entry, self-assessed bill of entry, and then file a refund claim. This entire thing has now been short-circuited. Now they can file a declaration post-clearance. In case excess duty is paid, that itself will be treated as a refund claim. So this will also reduce lot of litigation which is arising because this facility was not available.
This is Sandeep Bhalla from Dhruva Advisors. One of the questions was, you mentioned about reducing litigation on direct taxes. There used to be settlement commission which has been abolished, or in some sense, that actually used to reduce a lot of litigation, particularly in search cases where, there were questions of facts, there were questions of law, which were also considered during the, so that was one. Is there a thought process to bring something like that back? There was a demand of the industry that wherever the appeals are pending for more than a year or more than a certain period of time, at least the first appellate authority is not passed an order, then at least allow the assessee to file an appeal suo moto to the tribunal, so that at least, because today the situation is that while the appeals are pending at the first appellate authorities, tribunals do not have enough work on their hands. So you file an appeal before a tribunal, it comes up for hearing within 3-4 months, mostly between 3-4 months. So is there a thought process on moving some of these appeals to the tribunal? So that's the second question.
Yeah, so insofar as the first issue is concerned, so that was a policy call that the settlement commission was done away with. But then simultaneously, as you would recall, that last July, and so far as the search cases are concerned, the concept of block assessment has again been brought, wherein as against the past where each of the years we used to be reopened under 148 and then would get time barred at different points in time, bringing in inconsistencies, because by that time the officer would also have changed and new set of interpretations would happen. So therefore now a block assessment concept would perhaps, that would ease the process of assessment, and then also a 60% tax on the entire undisclosed income. That concept has been brought. So therefore I think that is what we feel, that insofar as such cases are concerned, the process has been reasonably, you see, streamlined or maybe made easier than what was there earlier. So that is point one. And then the entire search case would be actually considered in one go. The material would also be considered in one go, and that would, at least that would take care of inconsistencies in the approach, because the examination would be done at one point in time. And so far as the second point is concerned, that if there is a pendency with CIT appeals, then can it be actually escalated to the ITAT? At present there is no move like that, because it has its own implications. Because when it goes to ITAT, whether it goes as a first appeal or it goes as a second appeal.
Yeah.
Right. So that is also an issue that one has to actually see. So that is not under examination at present.
Not under examination. DA Secretary, let me come to you on one of the issues that, of course, at this point in time is grabbing headlines world over, and that's the move on cryptocurrencies. And ever since we saw President Trump come to office, we've seen a rally in cryptocurrencies. Is there, at this point in time, I mean, work was on a cryptocurrency paper here as well, and of course we brought in the tax, but the RBI has been steadfast in saying no to cryptocurrencies. What is our approach likely to be now in light of the many global developments that have taken place on cryptocurrencies? Any change in stance, any change in thinking at this point in time, sir?
Cryptocurrency, as we are aware, we have done a discussion paper, including at the senior level participation from the Reserve Bank of India, and the committee had finalized the discussion paper. But thereafter we find that when it was about to be issued, that several jurisdictions, and you named one, but more than one jurisdictions have changed their position on crypto assets in terms of their scope, where they see the utility, including for settlement, multilateral settlement of payments, cross-border payments. So there's one side, they're saying that much stronger use of crypto assets as an stable coin, which will have a large implications for an emerging economy like ours. The second one, using it as a multilateral settlement mechanism, which will again has a very major implications that how the global systems are organized. So in that context, we are recalibrating the paper, because the purpose of that paper is to pose the right questions to the stakeholders so that we get the right answers in terms of an appropriate answer to inform our policy making.
But what does the recalibration mean, sir? Because at this point in time, the RBI was very clear. They don't believe that cryptocurrency is the road to take at all. Is there a change in approach, given the fact that countries like the US are now full-fledgedly moving forward with cryptocurrencies?
So I will mention it that in 2023, when India had the G20 presidency, at that point of time, the stances of various jurisdictions, and I'm using the word jurisdictions instead of using the word countries, was fairly well known, and there was a stable position each one of them have taken. And this is one asset class which doesn't believe in the borders. We have to, what others will do, we have to be fully conscious of before we decide our own policies. It is not just a stable coin. At the 2023 issue was only different jurisdictions were looking for crypto assets as a stable coin.
Right.
Which is not a stable coin, doesn't have any much value. But a stable coin can cause a significant risk for our economy, for all emerging economies. Then a new element has come in. Some jurisdictions talking about a cross-border settlement doing it here, which is altogether a new dimension being brought in. So that requires to getting back not from the ground zero, but certainly going to the last stages of the drawing board and saying that do we have to recalibrate few of the questions so that we understand the risks very clearly and what can be the possible policy
So by when
responses.
do you believe this recalibration exercise will be over? And I'll get Mr. Nagaraju to comment on that as well.
I'll say that soon, but it may take a couple of months, but not longer.
A couple of months, but not longer. Mr. Nagaraju?
I support him.
That's an easy answer, sir. That's an easy answer. But let me...
We speak on the same voice, okay?
But let me come to you, Mr. Nagaraju. Two questions, sir. And one, I think that consumers here will, and across India, will be widely tuning into this KYC updation business, sir. And you made some announcement on that central registry. What should we expect now on this KYC updation, sir, if you can clarify for us?
See, the KYC now is the most authentic repository of information and also identity for the country. It is widely used. Now, a lot of data there is a duplication, and incomplete data is there, and we have been trying to sanitize the data available. But it's not, till now, whole data we could not do that. Now we want to give a couple of things we want to do it. One is we want to use the AI. We also want to use face auth, and we also want to give verification view only to the clients, so that they will be verifying the data. And we want to do 100% and deduplication. That also we want to weed it out, so that the database is much more robust, much more authentic, and it could be utilized by all the FI agencies.
Okay. Quick question on banks as well as NBFCs, Mr. Nagaraju. And, you know, the pain on the unsecured side that was red flagged by the RBI, do you believe that that is now a thing of the past? It's behind us? Has it bottomed out, or is there a worry of higher defaults from here?
Yeah, it was some time ago, the RBI has expressed the concern. But if you look at it now, the net NPA of NBFCs is about 1.2. And the gross NPAs also decline. Now, unsecured loans depends on the exigencies of the citizens. If they require unscheduled expenditure, then only they take the unsecured loans. If they don't have, especially actually goes up during agriculture season.
Yeah.
Now the agriculture season is over, they have a decline. That's which is a normal seasonal thing. We don't see any actually risk, long, very sustainable risk for these loans for the NBFCs. They are okay.
They're okay, so you don't believe that defaults are likely to move higher at this point?
I don't think so. There is, see, always there is a risk in the financial system, but we can't say that it doesn't exist. It exists, but we should be very alert.
Okay. And a quick follow-up question on the RBI's LCR rules, sir, on project finance. You know, are they likely to go forward? Are they on the back burner, or are in the cold storage, sir?
I'm not going to second-guess the RBI, but RBI has issued the draft. And we have conveyed our views on that. Now they have not issued the final draft, the regulations. So we will take at that line. Okay?
Is that on account of your persuasion, or have they dropped the idea themselves?
They consult a large number of stakeholders.
You're the biggest stakeholder.
And the government is also a stakeholder, because we have the responsibility of public interest.
Right.
And we don't want to lock up a lot of capital into this kind of ideal situation. So we have expressed our views based on the feedback we received from the industry. Okay. Now the RBI has not issued. So let us put a full stop there.
Let us put a full stop there. I get my cue, Mr. Nagaraju, but we've got a question here on MSMEs. Go ahead, sir.
Hello, sir. You answered about MSME, but it wasn't clear. Is the interest subvention scheme going to continue from 1st of January, or it's still for MSME?
I think the DA Secretary is responsible for this. He is going to answer.
There's a scheme on for the exporters, that interest subvention scheme is there for MSME. And there's no budget provision from 1st April. So the answer should be very clear. So the idea is that when the resources are limited, choices have to be made where these can be most effective. So the idea is, should we facilitate more credit? If more credit has to be done, guarantees have to be provided. Those pools of money The pools of insurance pools have to be guarantee pools, and money capital has to be provided there. So government felt that that is a way to move forward, provide more credit, take the risk so that the risk is lower, bank charges it lower, rather than saying bank can charge because of a higher risk and then government will do the subvention. When we say that industry has to be more productive, it presupposes a question that government should also be very productive, efficient in use of taxpayers' money. This is one example.
Go ahead, Pratik. We're running out of time.
Sure. Sir, so my question is to CBIC Chairman about the GST collections estimates. This 10.9% growth that we are projecting, that roughly is less than one of tax buoyancy. Now, one would argue that 1 lakh crore of personal income tax which has been left in the hands of consumers will also lead to more consumption and perhaps more GST collection as well. So do you think that slowdown in GST collection is a concern, and therefore things like track and trace kind of a mechanism which has been talked about, do you think that that can be expanded to many other products to check the evasion?
Yeah, as far as GST collections are concerned, in this month the GST collection was very robust. In fact, it was 1.95 lakh crores and at the growth rate of 12.3%. So this is the second highest ever GST collection in the history of GST. So far the GST collection, as far as center is concerned, the net GST collection was growing at the rate of 10.2%. It was higher than the GDP growth, nominal GDP growth. But the ask rate of GST collection growth is 10.9% for center. And in the last quarter, normally the GST collection is better as compared to first 3 quarters of the financial year. And this month revenue collection gives us confidence that we'll be collecting the revised estimate, which is the same as the budget estimate for GST revenue collection, which is at the level of 10.62 lakh crores. So we'll achieve the target, and it is beyond the tax buoyancy, I can say, is around 1.12.
Okay.
So it is good tax buoyancy, and the tax compliance is going up because of the policy changes which have been brought and the enforcement actions which have been taken by the central department and the state departments.
Right. So that's as far as GST is concerned. We've got the last few minutes, so very quick questions. Go ahead, sir.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Umang Sahai. I'm a professional in healthcare and education based out of US. I've been looking at the healthcare in India, and I find, and my question is basically to all the architects of the Indian economy, that with the present 1.4 billion people living in India, you have a present multi-specialty bed ratio of 7,900 to 1 patient. And you have 90,000 seats in medical institutes, where the population of this country is 1.4 billion. Is it not the time to look at it for restructuring, re-engineering, revamping, and at both macro and micro level, so that you could provide sustainable medical and healthcare and education to the people of this country?
Thank you, sir. Economic Affairs Secretary, go ahead, sir.
So the numbers I see that in terms of super specialty treatment beds, I don't have that data, but number of seats 2014 were 81,000, both UG and PG seats put together. 2024, that number is 1.92 lakh. So it has more than doubled, 130% increase has happened. Plus, another increase of 75,000 has been announced, of which 10,000 is going to happen this year. So that plan to make it another big increase of 75,000, not just in the medical colleges, but also through the large hospitals, even the district hospitals, through our DNB seats, where they are qualified professionals are there, but they can't do the teaching. That is my understanding. Plus, in terms of reforms, opening up the medical colleges, what are the norms are there, that is a separate exercise going on. And just before coming over here, I was with a similar kind of a gathering done by CII, and where some of the participants were talking about that how the corporates would like to do open more medical colleges can be facilitated. Just give an example. Government of UP came out to the market for 6 district hospitals saying that upgrade the hospital, run a medical college along with that, give 50% seats for Ayushman Bharat, and out of 6 districts, they could succeed in getting an entrepreneur and medical institutions for 4 districts to do that activity. This is another way of increasing medical education in India.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, but I'm going to take one last question here before I get wrap-up comments. We've got the Defense Secretary, the Labour Secretary, and the Consumer Affairs Secretary waiting by patiently as well. So one last question, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. This is Mahesh from Deloitte. Good evening. It was a blockbuster year in 2024 for GST, so the expectations are now only higher. I just had 2 suggestions and 2 questions. The suggestion is that, if a little more focus on export-related transactions which are getting taxed, if some clarifications can come out, like it did on the data hosting and advertising, that will be a welcome one. And so on the MSME front, if we can look at more rationalization on the registration, I know it's a balancing act between keeping, tracking what the sellers do and all of that, but we could start either with e-commerce in some sectors where we could have checks and balances. My 2 questions were from the AEO scheme. Is there anything that we can expect? I don't think it's a budget. It can even come during the year. You all had set up a committee to have enhanced experience for AEOs. And the second is whatever potentially may have got missed out in the council meeting, which needs a legislative change. Does industry have to wait a year? Or like the online gaming, can we expect something during the year? Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So you have mentioned about there certain services where the transactions happen across the borders. So to bring better clarity, this issue was taken up before the GST Council, and because this, in certain situations, the default rule of determination of place of supply is not applicable. It is in case of, say, intermediary services. So there in the GST Council, a decision could not be taken. An issue has been deferred. So the issue which you have raised, those kind of issues will be taken care once a decision is taken in GST Council. Second thing about the GST you mentioned is registration. For that also a consult paper was presented before the GST Council, because we also feel that as we noticed that there are fake entities which are entering into the ecosystem. So we tightened the registration process. In the process, maybe we started asking for documents based on the risk approach. Taxpayer, the potential taxpayer or the new taxpayer has to go to the biometric Aadhaar authentication centers. In certain situations, the premises were marked for physical verification. So we tightened the registration process to keep these fake entities from outside the system.
Right.
Because it was creating problem for the buyers, suppliers, and the entire ecosystem was getting vitiated. So this registration process was tightened. But in the process, we noticed that there are certain taxpayers who may not be passing on the ITC. So for them, they may be mostly having the B2C transactions.
Right.
There the process can be simplified. So a concept paper towards that has been presented before the GST Council, and it emerged from the Council deliberations that we need to work further on it. So in principle, yes. So it will have to be further fine-tuned, and then maybe in the next GST Council meeting, before that report will be ready.
Okay.
A decision can be taken so that process can be simplified for certain types of entities, and which may be a huge chunk of entities which are entering into the GST ecosystem. Then you mentioned about customs AEO, whether more things can be provided to AEO so that they are encouraged to join, new entities or new businesses are encouraged to join the AEO ecosystem. Yes, we are working towards that. Maybe certain more benefits can be extended to the AEOs so that it can become more attractive. And you...
Sir, that's it. He had a long list of questions. You've answered all of them. 10 seconds to each one of you, and I'll start by asking you, how confident do you feel about meeting the numbers that you have spelt out in the budget, sir, given all the global uncertainties that we're also going to be dealing with? I'll start by asking you, confident?
Yeah. So for RE, which has been set, In this year for indirect tax collection, we are definitely, the ask is 7.1%. We are sure that we'll be achieving those targets. And the B which has been set for the next year, that seek us to grow at the rate of 8.3%. We have done our math in projecting those figures, and we are confident that we will be achieving those unless, due to the global uncertainties, there is impact on GDP growth.
Okay, Ms. Agrawal.
Yes, we are very confident. The way we are growing in this year at the rate about 14.5%, I am confident that we will close this year with the targets that we have been given. So far as the next financial year, we have done our maths right, and I'm very, very hopeful that we should be able to meet the target.
Beat the target, not just meet or beat?
Well, at least meet the target.
At least meet the target. Mr. Nagaraju, the headline from you, and also lots of questions coming in. One final question. Will the MDR rules change? Will it be the end of zero MDR anytime soon, sir?
That is under consideration. We will let you know the policy decision when the decision is taken.
But anytime soon, sir?
Yeah, soon, this year.
This year. Mr. Seth, I'll close by asking you, growth 6.8% now, doable on the back of the measures taken?
Certainly. Given that what the external environment today is, presuming that this remains as it is at the moment, we expect the next year growth to be towards the upper limit of the band which have been suggested in the
Economic Survey, which is 6.8%. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for the Economic Affairs Secretary, the DFS Secretary, the CBIC Chairman and the CBDT Chairman. We truly appreciate you joining us here. We are going to do a quick change in our cast. We have the Defense Secretary here with us, also the Labour Secretary and the Consumer Affairs Secretary. May I request them to join us on stage, and may I request the team from North Block. Thank you very, very much for joining us here this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you joining us. No, there's no time to leave the room. I'm sorry, we're live. We're not leaving the room. We're starting the next session right away. May I request the secretaries to please join us on stage. Mr. Singh, could I request you to join us on stage, please? Mr. Singh, may I request you to join us on stage, sir? Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Nagaraju. Appreciate you joining us here today.